Today's Jumpstart is what I call Great Expectations, and I deliberately misspelled it. I wanted to see, I wanted to make it again. Lisa Bartez says, I'll say it again. Meditation is empowering. Great to hear you. You know what? As we continue to express this to other people, they'll come along with us. That's a good thing. So I want to make sure I'm in the right zone here so that I am not covered up by my little placard. So yeah, let's talk about great expectations. Trish Parr is here. Good morning, says Trish. Richard, you're in Taiwan. Wonderful. Great to have you here. I've spoken many times in Taiwan. I love Taiwan. So, and Janelle Canavo says, good morning. All right, so I want to talk to you about great expectations. Now, I deliberately misspelled it because I wanted to use a word play on the idea of something that grates on our nerves. And this came to me the other day when I saw some Facebook posts surrounding a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. I was in his wedding. He was in my wedding. We don't talk a lot. It's like I said yesterday, that old saying that if a woman doesn't talk to her best friend every day, she knows something's wrong. And if guys don't talk to their best friend except once a year, they know everything's okay. So that's kind of the relationship this guy and I have. Now, he and I met working at a radio station 32 years ago, I think. Anyway, he is a wonderful announcer, an amazing guy. He is always contributing. His thought is always, how can I contribute? That's what he does for a living. He's a radio announcer and a program director. Now, I'm saying this because if he hears this, that's okay. I love him, and I would say this to his face. And as I said, I have known him for 30 plus years. We've had a relatively close relationship. And in every conversation we have, even though they're somewhat infrequent, he laments the possibility that he could be fired from his job. Now, there have been times, and this is true of every radio station. Remember, my background is in radio. I was in radio for a couple of dozen years. Every radio station goes like this and goes like that, goes like this and goes like that. They'll go up, they'll peak, they'll get competition, they'll go down, they'll change, they'll go up, etc. So it's a constant reworking the format. That's why it's called a format. It's like a formula to try and attract audiences. And his station has been the number one station and him the number one announcer in his city. And it has also been one of the lowest ranked radio stations in his city. Now again, every time I talk to him, which is admittedly not that often, but every time I do talk to him, he worries about, oh, I'm going to get fired. Oh, I'm going to get fired. Well, what do you think finally happened after close to 40 years of saying, oh, I think I'm going to get fired? What do you think? Yes, he got fired. He got fired. He got fired because of the coronavirus, to be very honest with you. Radio revenues are through the floor. So what they're basically going to do is either sell off or automate the radio stations that he works for. Now, automation means that you just put recorded voices in. There's no live announcers. So he was let go. And I remember seeing those posts, and I called him. And he told me that he was fired, and it had happened just a day or so before. And my thought was, and this is going to sound mean at first, but my thought was, thank God. Thank God. You no longer have to worry about it. As it says in the Bible, that which I worried about has befallen me. That's what happens. Worry is a negative expectation. I was doing some research this morning on the word expectation. And, you say something to one of your employees or one of your kids, hey, I expect this to get done. Now that sounds almost like a attempt to exercise your will over another people. And in some ways it is. And what we expect in our life is actually exercising our will over ourselves. And since we're the epicenter of our lives, in other words, every single one of you has people in your lives that you treat somewhat differently because that person is somewhat different. When you change, when your expectations change, when you carry yourself, expect in a very different way that things are going to work out, that's when they begin to work out. When you expect things to go wrong, that's when they go wrong. The great motivational speaker Denis Waitley did a story about this on stage. He was talking about playing golf in a pro-am celebrity with Lee Trevino, at that time the greatest golfer in the world. And he said Trevino was trying to mess with him, and they were playing on this water hazard where you had to hit the ball over the water. And Trevino came up and said, "You're staring at the water. You're afraid you're going to hit the water and the ball in the water." Now what Waitley was doing was he was actually looking past the water. He was visualizing his ball landing on the other side. But Trevino stood there and just continued to mess with his head, kept saying, "You see your ball going in the water, you know it's going to go in the water," etc., etc. And finally Waitley said, "Are you insane?" He says, "I am going to drop this ball in the perfect dry spot on the other side of this water hazard, and then I'm going to knife it into the green, and I'm going to chip it onto the and I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to beat you." And Trevino says, "Oh, you're going to knock the ball over the water?" And Waitley says, "Yes, I'm going to knock the ball over the water." And Trevino said, "Then how come you're using an old ball?" Now, if you're not a golfer, you may not get that, and you may not be, but I think you understand what he means is, why are you using a ball you think you might lose in the water if you are so confident, if your expectation is that this is going to happen? I mentioned that I've been struggling with some professional services, and it's accounting. I had an accountant I liked. I switched to an accountant who was a friend. She didn't work out. I got another accountant. And what I've discovered with all of these accountants is that I sit down with them. I explain my situation. I explain to them what is important. And then what happens is they don't tell the bookkeeper who they assign to actually do the work. All the work's done by junior accountants and bookkeepers. You meet with the big accountant and they do a grand show of taking notes or typing them in, but it seems like nobody pays attention when it's time to actually do the work. So I've gone through 3 accountants in 4 years, and now I'm down here in Key Largo, and I did not write down what it was I was looking for in an accountant. Big mistake. Remember I told you how important that is? Didn't write it down. Instead, just found one that was rated well on Google, went and everything, and met with the accountant. And she said, "Well, don't you worry. I'm not going to pass you off to anybody else. I'm going to handle you myself." And inside, I started going, I was expecting something to go wrong. Let me just be honest with you. Based on my history, now my ego, my separated self, my human self wants to warn me. So it was preparing me that something was going to go wrong. Here we go. The challenge is those expectations, I believe, tend to cause things to go wrong. Well, what do you think happened? Exactly. She didn't pass my work off onto another accountant nor to a bookkeeper. However, she didn't go back and read her notes and factor any of that in when preparing my taxes. So we had to go back and forth repeatedly. So yes, I'm going to go shopping for another accountant. But this time, I'm going to write out everything I'm looking for in an accountant so that I can expect to find him or her. Expect to find what it is I'm looking for. You can visualize, you can set goals, you can have vision boards all day long. But if inside, in your mind and in your heart, you expect that it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. We need to have great expectations, not great expectations. Not expectations that grate on our nerves because our reality does not work out. Denis Waitley, who I just told you the story about with Lee Trevino, has a wonderful saying. You won't always get what you want in life, but in the long run, you will always get what you expect. Let me say that again. You won't always get what you want in life, but in the long run, you'll always get what you expect. The challenge is we say, well, then I expect this to work out fine. I expect my business to open and me to go right back to where I was or making actually 10 times more money. Yeah. That's why I expect. No, you don't. You don't really expect that. You're saying that. Inside, your ego mind is going, yeah, I don't think so. Just like in meditation is not getting somewhere and staying there. Meditation is trying to get somewhere mentally and physically and hold it for as long as possible, knowing that you're going to lose it multiple times and bringing it back. An expectation is often engaging your ego and arguing with it and telling it how and why things are not going to work out. Sometimes the how and why is just, you know what? I don't know how, but I believe it. I am willing to be embarrassed in my own mind and in front of other people by stating something that may or may not happen. One of the most common questions people ask me is how you met Maya Angelou. And I don't have time to give you all of it right now, but I'll tell you one thing, I expected to. I expected to meet Dr. Maya Angelou. I put it on my vision board. I told people I was going to meet Dr. Maya Angelou. And not only did I meet her, I would call her somewhat of a distant friend. She, of all the people in the world, would take my calls, would do my interviews, and was always willing to support me and help me. So anyway, what are you expecting? Not what do you want? What do you expect? Can you change your expectation? Can you begin to expect what you want rather than expecting what you don't want because you're afraid it won't happen? Today, begin to use the power of your expectations. Let's take a look at some of your comments, and then I'll have to say goodbye so we can go into the meditation group. Let's see. Tamara Robinson Staples says, good morning. Good morning, Lynn. Lynn's always she's one of my top fans. Thank you for that. And so is Lisa Bartels. She says, oh boy, do I do that. We all do. What you've got to do is be careful of what you're expecting. When you get ordained in ministerial school, one of the things you have to do is put on a complete church service. And my sermon that day was about the fact that in the Old Testament, God gives two chapters worth of instructions to Noah on how to build the ark. And nowhere in there does he say have a lifeboat. In other words, just have such faith that you just absolutely believe. You don't use an old ball when you're golfing. Great message. Thank you. Thank you, David. Bless you, dude. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for all of you who continue to share these on a daily basis, and that's a lot of you. All you got to do is press share, let your friends and family know what we're up to, and invite them to join the party every morning at 8 a.m. And right now, I am going to, you ready for this? Here comes the transition. It's time for us to go into the complaint-free meditation group and to do our meditation. So I look forward to having you. I'm just kidding. It's not that downbeat. It's actually a bit more inspiring than that. But those of you who are part of the complaint-free meditation group, I will see you live in 8 minutes. Those of you who are not, join now. www.complaintfreemeditation.com. I'll have Miroslav put it in the show notes as always. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you again tomorrow morning as we jumpstart your inner Miroslav. What does that mean? You'll find out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
No more complaining people, their lives are changing, we're flying.